Thank you for joining me on this journey to the light. Together we grow more powerful. Today we're talking about the World Government Summit and what they discussed there. We already did a video about Klaus Schwab, him addressing the Government Summit.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
And now there's a fantastic talk where the speaker addressed the problem of cryptocurrencies and currencies that are beyond national and indeed international control. For a while we've been talking about cryptocurrencies and whether or not they present a realistic alternative economic model that could see us out of the centralized systems of power. Well, that is being addressed by unelected globalists. Okay, let's have a look at this. On March the 29th and 30th, senior government officials and leaders of international organizations came from more than 190 countries and met in Dubai for the World Government Summit of 2022. Who puts on these bloody things? And have you ever been invited to one? Have you ever been like, we're doing a World Government Summit? Oh, that's good. I've got a government. I'm paying for them. Half my money goes to them, or a third of my money, or 25% of my money. Oh, good. Well, yeah, you can come. No one ever invites you, do they? It's always sort of done in plain sight, but behind closed doors. It's a weird business. Klaus Schwab, founder of the World Economic Forum, introduced a session titled Our World Today, Why Governments Must Act Now. Because I fucking said so. Dr. Pippa Malmgren, an economist who served as an economic policy senior advisor to former President George W. Bush, made a notable announcement about the relationship between finance and the world order. Her father served as a senior aide to former presidents Gerald Ford, Lyndon Johnson, JFK and Nixon. So, no family connections there that would root you deep within the establishment. Let's have a look at the video.
I remember talking to an Australian diplomat at one point about this break between the US and China.
They always look the same, don't they, these world summits? They always try and make them look really, really friendly. Always blue. They've done some research. Blue, that's a colour like blue sky thinking, like a clear horizon of new possibilities that we're in total control of. Now, of course, the main subject of this video is cryptocurrencies and centralised regulation of current digital currencies. At the moment, it's kind of a new frontier, a wild west, an opportunity for new colonisation, for new emergent powers. I'm sure there are loads of ways that I don't understand that these worlds are already being mapped and controlled. But here at this forum, they're openly discussing its regulation and ways that it has to alter.
And so I think we have to go deeper. And it's not about the US versus China. It's about what underpins a world order is always the financial system.
World order, world order. Where do I keep hearing that phrase, world order? In a sense, whether or not this is all conspiratorial, flotsam and jetsam, it is interesting to see powerful people congregating to discuss how they will advise world governments. That suggests that there's a power structure that supersedes elected government, even if it's just in an advisory capacity. That advice is coming from captains of industry, big tech titans, powerful forces, people that pay or don't pay a lot of tax, people that lobby with a lot of money, people that wield incredible influence. This situation, no matter what the backdrop might suggest, is not neutral.
I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71, and so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else.
Of course it is. In a sense, what the global financial structure, I suppose, represents is a system of power and relationships that supersedes democracy. Those relationships continue to exist no matter who is in government, no matter who you, an ordinary person, elects. Those financial institutions remain broadly untouched. They remain able to trade and communicate. Boundaries and barriers that we have to observe to them are surmountable.
And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one.
And we are going to be in fucking control of it.
And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital.
Do you remember, at first with digital currency, it was derided, ridiculed, mocked, sneered at, it won't work, tried to destroy it, undermine it. And now, we're gonna own it. That's really similar to what Gandhi said. First they laugh at you, then they attack you, and eventually you win. Well, in this case, this is more centralization of power. This is more control to existing power bases. This is an acknowledgement that cryptocurrency Whatever it is, it ain't nothing. It's clearly a means for exerting power, for trading, for exercising control, and it's not going to go unregulated for much longer.
It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens.
Yeah, we don't want citizens getting any power. Democracy is not about ordinary citizens having power. Oh no, actually that is what it is. Sorry. Wrong meeting.
In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money.
I don't think that any of these individuals, by the way, are actual baddies, like she's not a good person or whatever. I'm saying that there are systems and relationships and indeed forums that exist where power becomes concentrated, where relationships get augmented, where ideas get cemented, where policies recur and get instantiated, where advice gets passed down. You only have to look at the list of people that have been through the apprenticeships offered by the WEF to see that that's real. You only have to see the way that different political leaders say things like build back better, a phrase that I believe came from the WEF, to see its influence and its impact. I'm not even suggesting it's malign or type stuff. I'm simply saying these meetings are happening and they are not just for a bit of a laugh. They're not talking about table tennis, are they, and deep sea diving. They're talking about power and how power operates and what are the submerged structures that hold up the visage of apparent power and how to control them.
But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private.
This guy's just checked out now. He's bored of it.
But what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency.
Well, we'll see how much power is wielded at these various summits by just waiting and watching what happens. What she is suggesting is that there will be new emergent digital currencies that are state controlled, and I would imagine that what will happen is that other digital currencies will be discredited, outlawed, banned. You'll be punished if you use them or trade with them. You know, there'll be ways, won't there, of once again centralizing power that is currently diffuse.
The Chinese were the first. The U.S. is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well.
What was being addressed there are the financial systems and power structures that are transcendent of national borders and how cryptocurrencies, or at least digital currencies, can be brought into line with those existing power structures. For there to be a global digital financial system such as the one Malmgren speaks of, governments would have full control over currencies, making financial surveillance and censorship easier than ever. Two other goals, two things we've talked about a lot: the financial surveillance that took place in Canada during the trucker protests and the freezing of the bank accounts, the censorship that we're seeing everywhere all over the planet is all we're discussing, right? In part, at least, this is a way to regulate the otherwise elusive, truly decentralized version of cryptocurrencies. Because of the nature of cryptocurrencies that are based on blockchain as a ledger that records every transaction, governments would have unrestricted and easy access and command and control over when, how and what people do with their money. Potentially there'd be a world where you say, oh, I'd like to buy some pet food for my gerbil. You're not buying any food for that gerbil. Also, we're taking that gerbil and putting it in a little net sack, like our friends in China. Beyond simply keeping an ever watchful eye over what citizens are up to, governments would also be able to decide on more radical and, in immediate terms, much more damaging moves, such as cutting people off from their money. Well, we saw again a piloting of that mentality with the trucker protest, the freezing of bank accounts of people that donated via GoFundMe and other sites to the trucker protest. Now, I sometimes feel that what happens is ideas are piloted, that they test the water. Hey, what happens if we lock everyone in their homes? They're broadly speaking tolerating it. Hey, what happens if we just shut down their bank accounts? Yep, they're putting up with it. What happens if we create a centralized global dystopia? Woohoo! I sometimes wonder if governments are piloting different ideas to see how we respond to them. Measures that took place during the pandemic, things that happened during protests, the freezing of accounts, increased surveillance, increased regulation broadly, whether legitimately or not legitimately to address a medical condition. Sometimes what I feel is happening is a kind of testing of the water around the assertion of power. And now it seems that there are broader plans. So, you know, you can call this a conspiracy theory if you want to, if it helps you. What I would call this is listening to a person talking at a summit populated by powerful and influential people and predicting stuff that will happen. If over the next week, month, few years, we hear, oh yeah, America is introducing a centralized digital currency, we'll go, oh look, we heard about that already. Ask yourself, are we seeing an increase in surveillance? Are we seeing an increase in regulation and legislation against protest? Are we seeing protests shut down quite aggressively in some cases? Do you think you have more or less power to free speech than you used to have? You're not just going to wake up one day in Beijing confronted with a person in a hazmat suit. Incrementally, like the proverbial frog, you will notice that the temperature is being turned up. Of course, our prejudices and social conditioning and political propaganda has led us to understand that China was always a place with a great deal of state-sanctioned, centralized authoritarianism. But we did not anticipate it in Canada. We did not anticipate protests getting shut down. Yeah, but they were noisy, those protests. Yeah, protests are noisy. Freedom is noisy. Dealing with a diverse range of people with a diverse set of needs is difficult. And if your response to it is to shut it down, there's a word for that already. And it ain't democracy. China's not alone. The EU is looking for ways to introduce a digital euro, and the situation's the same in the US, where a digital dollar might be on the horizon. So these conferences, they're not purely speculative. It's not just a bunch of intellectuals chewing the fat with a blue backdrop. They're discussing things that down the line are going to happen. They're positioning their clients to best benefit from those changes, and they're advising those governments how to make those changes. And this is just the World Government Summit. I mean, even the name's a bit mad. Why would you have a summit telling governments what to do? Who's meant to tell governments what to do? I'll give you a clue. You! But when the media covers policies around this issue, the focus is mainly on China and what is seen as the rise of financial authoritarianism there. Apparently, that's always been the way. We've always used China as a, oh, look over there, China, much worse what they're doing, you can't trust them, the Chinese. But actually, as with the pandemic, there's an argument that we're learning from their models, replicating their models, simply doing it with different wallpaper. Given their backdrop preferences, probably blue. In truth, China isn't even trying to hide that it wants to control from the state level everything that can be controlled, starting with speech and information. Therefore, the idea that the trend wouldn't reach money as well should surprise nobody. One of the pilot cities chosen to test out the e-yuan is reporting that the main benefit observed so far is that this financial system makes it easy to track cash flow and enforce financial rules. And the end goal, once widely adopted, will be to track all transactions taking place in Chinese society. That's omniscience. That's the ability to see all, to control all, to have total power. In a sense, we're already seeing total power in China. If you can just lock 25 million people in their homes, take their pets off them, separate them from their kids, what more power, what more significant biopotency could be exerted on a population? But once you control money and trade and transaction, I think we might want to be a bit more circumspect about what we prescribe to in order to pursue what we're calling progress. Because I'm not sure where we're progressing to is somewhere I want to go. Some in the West are already wary of the implications of the trend, with critics of the central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, not mincing their words as they are warning that if introduced in the US, the country's government will show that it's well on its way to authoritarianism. I suppose what we're asking is, does what take place in these world government summits or these WEF meetings influence what happens at a national level, at a global level? And do you believe that cryptocurrencies, or as it says here, digital currencies, are being more and more threatened, particularly because they represent an opportunity for unregulated freedom, unregulated trade? What do you want from your government? What do you want from your corporations? Do you want government simply to be a set of administrators and bureaucrats that control municipal facilities? Like, listen, we're going to need roads, hospitals and that, rather than this big centralized, terrifying mind that wants to suck all reality into it, chew it up and spit it out in a form that's favourable for it. I think centralisation must be resisted. I think alternative forms of currency are beneficial. I think dissenting and alternative voices are necessary.